So a Democratic mayor in Nevada, I think it was North Las Vegas, recently switched from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party. Check out his reasoning and then we'll talk about it.
Our next guest says the Republican Party is the party of the working class, opportunity and freedom, and that's why the mayor is leaving the Democratic Party for the Republican Party. And North Las Vegas Mayor John Lee joins us right now. Mayor, good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve. Nice to see you.
It's nice to see you as well. You say the Democratic Party is now being run by admitted socialists, and that's why you had to get out.
Well, I'd say card-carrying socialists. In the Democratic Party in Nevada, they had an election recently for leadership, and 4 of the 5 people were card-carrying members of the Socialistic Party. It's not the party that I grew up with 25 years ago in this environment, and it's not the party I can stand with anymore.
And the Democratic Party you grew up with was the party of the working class, but you don't see that anymore.
No, the working class, the working men and women of this country, and also the small business owners are not a part of the conversation anymore. It all has to do with the elitists, and it has to do with the socialists. That is not the agenda that I have in mind for this country of the future.
Yeah, Mayor, what do people out there in the Las Vegas area think about how Joe Biden is remaking the federal government into a gigantic, much bigger jobs program?
Well, you know, we've had issues out in the West here with COVID and with, you know, the tourism, hospitality, and gaming industry, but we are not for expanding the government to even bigger and more intrusive into our lives. That's not what we want out West, and we're not going to accept it anymore. What
about higher taxes? You know, they've talked about raising taxes on people who make over $400,000 a year for a couple, or corporate taxes. There are a lot of big corporations out there in Vegas.
There are, and those taxes are very important. A lot of taxes are taking out of people's pockets, or taxes that we kind of need to run our local governments and stuff. They're not giving any opportunity about families saving for their future, for their children's education. It's all about them and their socialistic values, and that doesn't work.
Real quickly, are your friends surprised you're switching parties?
I would agree that they probably are, but you know, when you're a pro-life Democrat, a pro-gun Democrat, and you're a very conservative person, that's not really well known in the Democratic Party anymore. And so for me to hang on as long as I did, hoping the party would change, it didn't, it got worse. So therefore, I found a new place that I can put my allegiance to and help, once again, forget about the last 8 years. It's the next 4 years that predict the future.
He's a brand new Republican. John Lee, North Las Vegas Mayor. Sir, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so what you just witnessed there was completely asinine and just blatant propaganda from the interviewer there that was talking to him. So this is Mayor John Lee, I think that's his name. I don't really care, but well, first let me give you an understanding of the situation, just a little understanding of the situation if you're not familiar. So not too long ago, there were elections in Nevada. I actually made a video about this if you want to go back and watch it. I think it's titled Socialism Wins in Nevada or something. So there were elections in Nevada where essentially the lefties that were running, and he kind of detailed it there, basically beat out the corporatists, the establishments, you know, and they beat them out. You know, they were backed by the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, and they came in and they won. And now I believe in Nevada, the Democrats control every level of government, and it's led by people who are backed by the DSA. And after this happened, the establishment Dems, the corporate Dems, the people that always preach unity, they dipped. They dipped. And they made off with the money too. But moral of the story is they dipped. Okay? But we don't give a fuck. Say goodbye to them. Shout out to Nevada. Now, let's get into what he had to say here. First of all, in regards to this guy switching to the Republican Party, goodbye. See ya. You won't be missed. Goodbye. These types of people, these the Joe Manchin types, the Kristen Cinemas or Kirsten, whatever her name is, and the rest of them, they all need to be expunged. Say goodbye. We don't need you here in the Democratic Party. You see, this is what I hate about American politics that you don't see in other countries. We have this two-party system, and that's it. It's just two parties. You have the Democrats and you have the Republicans, that are basically two business parties. It's basically two Republican parties, but one is slightly not as worse as the other. I mean, that's really it if we're drawing comparisons, okay? And so there's no real Labor Party, there's no Socialist Party, no Communist Party, no even like right-wing populist party. There's only two parties. So there's no competition. So people like this can intrude into the Democratic Party and kind of espouse their values that don't even represent what the Democratic Party actually represents, which is an FDR style of governing, a Lyndon B. Johnson style of governing. You know what I mean? The guy calls the Republican Party the party of the working class, the party of opportunity, the party of freedom. False, false, and false. The party of the working class, how? They oppose raising the minimum wage. They oppose unions. They're anti-union. They oppose anything to help the working class. How the fuck is the Republican Party the party of the working class? Please explain this to me. They're trying to use this new rhetoric, trying to say that, oh, the Democrats aren't for the working class, the Republicans are. How? How? Everything points to the fact that you're not. You're lying. It's called lying. They say they're the party of opportunity. Obviously not. The party of freedom. Only when it's for people that you agree with. When it's people that you disagree with, freedom goes out the fucking door. And why is it that, a lot of those people in the Republican side, as well as the Democrats, but we're talking about the Republicans right now, are drug warriors, except for the libertarian types. Well, throw them some credit, but they're drug warriors. When somebody gets caught with some weed, you want to throw the book at them. The party of freedom, my ass. They say the Democratic Party is run by admitted socialists, card-carrying socialists. I wish that were true, but it's not. The Democratic Party is run by corporations and the establishment and Joe Biden and people of his like. It is not run by socialists. As Joe Biden said when he was debating against Trump, he beat the socialists, that being Bernie Sanders. I wish that Bernie Sanders was the leader of the Democratic Party, but that is unfortunately not the reality that we live in. So he's wrong there. He says that the Democratic Party gave up. He said the Democratic Party that he grew up in was the party of the working class, but not anymore. How so? How so? I would argue that both parties have been somewhat vitriolic to the working class, but we've seen good things from the Democrats as of late, many bad things, but we've seen the PRO Act, among other things. I'm quite disappointed with them not passing the $15 minimum wage, but that's an entirely different conversation. And then he tries to equate elitism with socialism. So that he tried to say that, the Democrats are pandering to the elites, and he somehow tries to ties that in with socialism. More and more as I listen to these people talk, I begin to think that none of these people actually know what socialism means. They don't know what any of these words mean. I'm starting to question their education and where they got it, because they just throw things out there and hope to scare people. Like, oh, socialism. And then some 80-year-old grandma sitting at home watching Fox News or Clutch Her Pearls and get scared because she heard the word socialism, and it's only being used on Fox News when it's, being equated with something awful, And so he says that, and this is the part that I like the most, the guy, the interviewer guy, he goes, Joe Biden's remaking federal government into a gigantic jobs program. Ooh. No, not at all. If you want to talk about a gigantic jobs program, let's look back in the 1930s when FDR was in place, and what happened when that occurred. We had something that was known as the golden age of economic expansion. If you want to talk about a jobs program and creating jobs and what have you. And the guy says he's not for expanding the government. Well, that tells you all you need to know right there. No government. Government is bad. How was he even able to run as a Democrat? See, this is the problem that I was alluding to earlier in the video. We have this two-party system, and people like this are able to kind of tread that fine line in between. I wouldn't even call this neoliberalism. This is just full right-wing. This is just full Republican right here. I'm not for expanding the government. I mean, there's no left ideology in that whatsoever. How is this guy able to parade as a Democrat for so long? He's a fucking Republican through and through, all the way. And no one, and I mean absolutely no one, not a single soul should be upset that he's gone. Peace.